broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this edition of Gun Guy Radio is supplied by LA Police Gear, lapolicegear.com.
Welcome to episode 118 of Gun Guy Radio. This is a podcast that shines a positive light on the firearms lifestyle. I'm your host, Jake Challand, and this is your weekly dose of positive firearms talk without the politics. Well, for this week, we're doing something a little bit different. This episode's main topic is actually another show. Yeah, that's right, a pilot. It's going to be a pilot episode for the Firearms Radio Network's new Guns of Hollywood podcast. And joining us this week is our special guest and host of the new Guns of Hollywood podcast, A.E. Is it Howe?
Correct.
And do you go by your given name, Allie?
I sure do. Even if it causes confusion.
So is that, I'm sorry, is that like a boy named Sue, or how does that work?
It wasn't too bad growing up with it. It really wasn't. I've only met one other male with the same first name, but it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's what, men and women that are called Stacy. Is that another one of them that's kind of on the line?
Stacy Keach, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of those, I don't know. I guess it depends on how many you run into in your lifetime, how much it catches you off guard. But well, I'm
a pretty big guy. Nobody ever gave me any problem.
Well, very, very cool. So get into the main topic here in a minute. Let me hit a few announcements here. We're looking for gun and gear reviewers for the Firearms Insider. So if you like to review guns, gear, accessories, or even if you like to blog, this is our community site where anyone really has a voice. So shoot me an email, jake@firearmsradio.tv, and we'll get you hooked up with the team over there at the Firearms Insider, and we've got lots of exciting new reviews going up every day. I think we just posted review on like the new Glock 42, lots of stuff, some new holsters, some knives, Duluth Trading Company fire hose work pants. Let's see here. Yeah, the Henry Classic Lever Action 22. Lots of cool stuff going on over there. So if you if you like to contribute to the Firearms Radio Network or Gun Guy Radio, you can now do that by shopping Amazon. So before your next Amazon shopping spree, just head on over to gunguyradio.com and click the Amazon banner. And a small percentage goes to the Firearms Radio Network and helps pay for some of the bandwidth costs over here. And I really appreciate everyone that's been doing that. I've seen really, really good response. So thank you so much. Well, we're to the main topic, the pilot episode for Guns of Hollywood. So, Allie, I'm going to let you run this episode, kind of run through the format you've outlined for it. But first, let's get to know you a little bit. Did you grow up with guns? How did you become a gun guy?
Well, actually, a fascination with history. Particularly Civil War history. The first gun I bought was a brass frame 51 Navy, and I've shot mostly black powder for the first 25, 30 years that of shooting. Occasionally, a few other historical arms, like I've got a Mark IV Webley and things like that, but most of them were older historical firearms. So I come from an interest in history and military history, and it grew into, how can you not be interested in military history and not be interested in guns and arms and ordnance, Then just recently, I've gotten interested in cartridge guns. I'm tired of cleaning black powder out of guns after 30 years, and so I've gotten into shooting USPSA in the last since January, and it's a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. I can tell you, it's a lot of fun to get out there and shoot targets. And with I'm used to black powder guns where if you're shooting a round off every 10 minutes, you're doing good,
Right.
But getting out there and the people at our range, I mean, they're great guys and girls, and it's a lot of fun. And so I've started a collection of newer guns now. My wife has given me sideways looks, but luckily she likes shooting too. We actually met at a Civil War reenactment 25, 30 some odd years ago. So she grew up with guns too.
Very cool. And are you from Florida? Is that right?
I was born and raised down in Tampa and been in the Southeast my whole life. So
very cool. What gave you the idea for a movie podcast about guns and movies?
Well, I've had a huge interest in movies. In fact, I've written one screenplay that was actually produced and done a few others that have been optioned and stuff. So I've always had a great interest in movies and action movies, military movies, Westerns. I just love them. And I think that in some of these films, the really good ones, a lot of times the guns themselves actually are like character actors. They add a feel to the film, and they have a presence. And I thought it'd be really interesting to talk about it and get some great guests. I think we've already talked about some people that we can have on and talk with that probably have much of the same interest in guns and movies. I think a lot of us, if it didn't start our interest in guns, it has certainly fueled our interest when you see our action heroes. And let's admit it, all of us that are shooting USPSA, occasionally you're thinking you're the action hero out there in that stage, But,
until I see my time.
Until you see your time. Exactly. It feels like you're moving so fast when you're doing it.
Well, awesome. Well, so this movie, I guess, for this main topic that we're talking about, I guess, is that how you're going to run? I guess tell me a little bit how you plan on running your show. You're going to pick one TV show or movie a week to talk about, and
mix it up a little bit. Hopefully, we'll get some guests that I'd love to get some of the people who are fairly big names in the gun world to tell us about their favorite films and guns, and I think that would kind of be nice to insert a few of those in the schedule too. But mostly we'll pick a film, and then it's not a review. We aren't reviewing the film. A lot of these films may not be real good, but the action and the guns are so cool. How can you not enjoy them?
Right. Absolutely. So, and another reason I'm doing this on Gun Guy Radio is you're looking for some people to help you co-host, right? Maybe on a regular basis.
Yeah. Someone who has a really strong knowledge of guns and an interest in films, love film. You have to love the movies and have that enthusiasm. Right.
Absolutely. And for this week, I suggested, what's the name of it? Escape from New York, the classic Kurt Russell film from, 1981?
Exactly. I think cult classic.
And I hadn't ever seen it, and I saw it. I started looking through my Netflix and Amazon. I saw it on there, and if I had looked at IMFDB, and that's Internet Movie Firearms database, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I had looked there first, I might not have picked this film because there was only a handful of guns in it. But I'm glad I did because there's some pretty funny things about the guns in this movie and the gunplay. Now, when I don't know what you're like, Allie, but when I sit down and watch a movie, my wife hates this because I'm single focused on the movie. Like, I can't like chit chat and like have wife time or whatever. I because I'm too glued to the movie, and I have to be immersed in it. And I don't know, it's just the way I am. And so I love watching movies, action movies, thrillers, maybe even some horror, but not too much. What do you think about modern day trailers? I think they kind of, for me, ruin the movie.
Well, a lot of times they show you the whole movie.
Right.
You know? Either they either do that or they show you so little that you don't know what the movie is going to be like. You know, they and sometimes trailers can mislead you because they've made the film and then the money people decide that, well, that's not really going to sell, so we're going to make it this in the trailer. I think a prime example, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the film, but I'm not going to be able to think of it. Fifth Element, with it, their trailers made it appear like it was a sci-fi adventure kind of thing, fantasy. But in reality, it was mostly comedy with some action. Bruce Willis was in it, and it was hilarious. It was a great film.
Yeah, you're going to have to do an episode on The Fifth Element for sure.
But the trailer was just, I mean, they tried to make it into an action sci-fi movie in the trailer. And I think they did that because somebody in marketing said, that's what's going to sell.
Right.
And all they want you to do is get in that theater. Pay your money, be in the theater, and they're done.
Well,
their job's over.
Or sometimes you'll see clips in the trailer that were cut from the main film. So you get through the main film and you're like, wait, that's not what was in the trailer.
Right. Yeah, they make trailers sometimes before the film's finished.
Right. So what I kind of segued into the trailers there, but what kind of movie, what type of watcher would you describe yourself as? Do you get totally immersed and lost and can't be distracted like I do?
No, I can come in and out of a film. I can, sometimes I'll watch 10, 15 minutes. I'll think there's something else I need to do, and I'll pause it and go do that and come back and watch some more. The Blu-rays irritate me because they aren't like the DVDs that always come back to the same thing. If your machine turns off, the Blu-ray isn't always going to come back to the same place. But
interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I like about streaming on like Netflix or Amazon. You can be watching on one device, and then I can go out to the living room and bring it up on the like Roku player, and then it picks up where I left off on like my iPhone. So that is so handy.
Streaming is the future. It really is.
Absolutely. And maybe that's something, as this show goes forward, I think towards the end of the episodes, you're going to kind of give a list of what the next podcast might be about. And that way people can, watch ahead of time before those podcasts release. Right.
You and I had talked about developing a schedule and posting it on the website. I think that's a great idea, at least 6 months out, and leaving some open dates for things that might pop up, interviews that might come along and
right.
we want to jump on. But
right, and I don't know, who knows where it could take us. I mean, I know some like fan podcasts and stuff, they'll do, a set time showing where everyone sits down at, like 5 or 8 o'clock Friday night. They set a time and then they do like a chat while the movie's going, and that might be interesting. But okay, well, I'll let you kind of take it away here. I think that's enough of me kind of outlining what's going on. So I'll let you kind of run your pilot episode here, and I'll be your guest.
Cool. You've already said we're talking about 1981's Escape from New York. For those of you that haven't seen the film, you've got Manhattan has been turned into a penal colony, it's the date is 1997. I'm sure you all remember when Manhattan was turned into a penal colony. But a plane with the President of the United States has been hijacked by terrorists. The plane ends up crashing. The president, in this neat little egg that he gets in, a little escape capsule out of Air Force One, lands in New York. He has some important tape and information, but that's all that's all just set up for the film.
Right. To the part of New York being turned into a prison or Manhattan, because I guess the premise was that crime had increased like 400% in America, and they had to put all the prisoners somewhere. So why not convert Manhattan into a giant prison, which I think some people already think it is, or I
would feel like I was in a prison if I was in New York City. I'm a country guy.
Yeah, or someone could say something about, how many criminals are in New York and how it's not that far-fetched, and I don't know, it's just kind of comical to me. But anyways.
And I don't think they were taking themselves real seriously. I think that's one of the things that's great about the film. It has a Mad Max Thunderdome feel, and it came out about the same time period, and that's what John Carpenter, who was the director, was going for, I think.
Right, and did John Carpenter? I didn't even look what else he did, but did he do what? Oh, Escape from Me Now.
There's a follow-up, Escape from L.A.
Right, but he did some other well-known films, right?
Halloween, which is his biggest.
Okay.
The one he's best known for. And
Assault on Precinct 13 actually came out before this, and there was actually a remake of that as well, but that was the one I was thinking of.
Right, and Assault on Precinct 13 is fodder for this podcast.
Awesome.
It's pretty neat, and there's gunplay and police, and definitely. After now, the president is down in Manhattan, and the security forces decide to send in Kurt Russell, who's playing Snake Plissken. You were talking about names. Why couldn't my parents have named me Snake? There's a name for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is there's lots of little things that they've done to ramp up the action. He has something put into him. I thought it was kind of strange, their explanation. And I don't think any of that's important to the film, really. But he's got a timer ticking inside of him that if he doesn't rescue the president and get him out, then he's going to die himself. It gave him, 24 hours, 36 hours, something?
It was 24, but like the next time they flashed to it, there was like 22 or 21 hours. And he was like, "What's the deal?" I thought you said 24. Well, and we should mention that some of the other characters in it. So the guy that sent him in was Lee Van Cleef, who
we will no doubt see again or hear about again on this podcast, because he's been in some great westerns. He's a marvelous character actor.
Absolutely, yeah. He's one of my favorite character actors for sure. I'm going down a tangent here, but this is something we're going to outline at the beginning, and spoilers. So how are you? I'm assuming if we're talking about films and the guns in it, this is pretty much a spoiler zone. So, if you have, but we're going to help you with that, I think, later on, because like Allie said, we're going to make a calendar on the website so you can see what movies are coming up and you can watch them ahead of time.
Exactly.
But this one has been out for what 30 or more?
81, so 30, my math, 30
plus years.
So there you go. Thank you. Yes. 33 years.
Right. Well, and IMDb, it has an average 7.2 out of 10, which is pretty good for most movies.
It is, yeah.
But anyways, yeah, so this is kind of a spoiler zone where you're going to, basically find out every little detail about the movie when you listen. But yeah, I'm sorry. I totally took you off topic.
That's okay. But as I said, the whole movie's a setup for Kurt Russell to go in there and go into this kind of dystopia world where you have the prisoners running society and to rescue the president in this time constraint.
Right, right. Because there's no prison guards in this, so it's basically they send prisoners in. And what's the motto that you go in and you don't come out, or
right?
Yeah,
like the Roach Motel. And the prisoners have pretty much been allowed to run rampant. Like you said, there's no guards. So they've created this Mad Max society inside.
Right. And we had talked earlier about how movie trailers were unrealistic sometimes and showed things that weren't really there. And looking at the cover of this movie, they show the Statue of Liberty's head like in the middle of the street in New York. Right. And that never happened, right? Nope.
You just I think you see the Statue of Liberty a couple of times out in and that's just establishing shots and that's all. Yes, no, there's no Statue of Liberty crash in the.
What is it? Ellis Island? What island is it? Statue of Liberty on?
Staten Island.
Staten Island. Okay, and that's like where the headquarters is for the I guess the prison guards that keep the prisoners in. So there's guards outside the walls, that make sure no one escapes.
Yeah, surprisingly, now this is a 1981 movie, and you got to cut them a little slack on the special effects and stuff. The matte paintings, I don't know about you, Jake, but it was pretty lame. Some of the special effects.
Yeah,
but they only had a $6 million budget, and even in 1981, that was not a huge budget film.
So, let's talk about one of the first guns, or did you want to continue to outline?
Well, we could talk a little bit more about the people that are in it. Ernest Borgnine's in it, who's definitely one of my favorite character actors, and we're going to see him again very shortly or hear about him again very shortly in a podcast about the Wild Bunch. He has a starring role in it. Of course, Kurt Russell. Maybe we'll do one on Tombstone.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But Donald Pleasance, who was in Halloween. A lot of this crew is John Carpenter's people. He did several of these films like Precinct 13 and Halloween. He had this little crew that kind of went around with him and were in some of the same films. Like Donald Pleasance, you'll see in Halloween, and he's in this. And he did a couple of other films with Kurt Russell, too, actually. Big Trouble in Little China, I think, was a John Carpenter film that Kurt Russell starred in.
Yeah, there's some other actors you might recognize, too, but those are really the big three, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little while before they send Kurt Russell in, we see one of the first guns in the film, and it's it's an unusual-looking AR or M16. Actually, it's an M16.
Oh. Right. That they took the grip, the forearm off of. They look really funny.
And I was looking at IMFDB, and they say that they're M16 SP1 rifles, or they may be AR-15s. But anyways, they say their handguards were removed and replaced with a slender plastic sleeve that wraps around the barrel and gas tube, in order to make them more futuristic and unable to hold with your supported
they
hand.
just look stupid. They really just look stupid.
Now, I thought I didn't look real close, zoom in anything on the film, but I thought that they actually were just the barrels and like took the gas tubes off. But I suppose if they were firing them, they had to have them on.
Yeah, I think they had the gas tube too.
But it's just a real goofy looking gun. You're kind of like, what?
Seeing the security forces we're used to today where they've got all the armor plating and everything on. These guys are just in work clothes. They have these helmets on, and you look at the visors and you wonder, could they see out of them? Because they've got them like blacked out.
Yeah, they're like big welding helmets or grinder shields or something.
I mean, if they made this film today, all the security people would have these huge pads on and be all militarized out. But they really literally look like security guards that somebody put helmets on. And did you see the big backpacks they were wearing? Yeah. Whenever they went anywhere, it looked like they were all carrying tents and I don't know what all they had, but it was really kind of strange when they were going out on just like a mission to get the president, and they're all wearing these big backpacks.
Right. Oh, you know what? Did I gloss over who played the president? Did you mention that? Donald
Pleasance. We mentioned him.
You did mention him. I'm sorry. I must have fell asleep there, but I thought it was funny that they picked a British actor for the president.
Yeah, I actually saw some trivia on it that he had a backstory to explain that, but John Carpenter decided not to use it. But he, in his own mind, he came up with a backstory because he obviously thought that was a little strange.
Anyways, I got you off track again.
And then shortly after, they did do a kind of a neat thing of panning over the table with the guns that Pliskin is going to use in the film. They even showed speed loaders for the revolver and extra magazines for the MAC-10.
Don't forget the Chinese stars.
Yes.
Yeah, the MAC-10 says it's in 45 ACP, and don't forget the big silencer can that's on the front of that. It's longer than the MAC-10 itself.
Yeah, it's actually a suppressor, and that was actually a selling point for the MAC-10s. That's actually the way they looked.
Huh. Well, and were the real MAC-10s, did they have a rifle scope mounted to the silencer?
I thought that was the stupidest looking thing I'd ever seen. But I was looking, and they actually had an optional scope mount. Now, mind you, the range is listed as 164 feet. So I'm not sure why you need a scope if you're only now. And that's in the day. You'd think, well, maybe night vision or something, but that's kind of the 1970s. Night vision equipment was, weighed 40 pounds. It was not mountable on a gun.
Oh, did he have a holster for that MAC-10?
He did.
Oh, and it's even got like a cutout or like a leather loop for the scope or to go through, I guess. Man, that's goofy.
And the other gun is a Model 67 Smith & Wesson with the scope mounted on it.
Yeah, I mean, was that a thing with 80s movies? Because you saw. I don't know. There's another movie with Sylvester Stallone. I can't think of the name of it, but he's got a revolver with a scope, or someone in that movie has a revolver with a scope on it, or maybe it's a giant laser.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, if the revolver had more than a 4-inch barrel, you might be able to say, well,
sure. Yeah, I guess maybe some handgun hunters might put a scope on it, but yeah.
Not on a 4-inch barrel.
No.
No, that had to go down as the silliest thing. I guess they just decided they looked high tech with the scope on it. It'd be interesting to talk to the armorer and find out if that was his suggestion or if that was somebody else in the production company. He said, those look too much like just ordinary guns. We need to do something to make them look like they're 1997 guns.
Right, because this was 81, so 90s. Yeah, so it was more than 15 years in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
But the MAC-10s, can you believe they actually made a MAC-10 in a 380? A submachine gun in 380?
Well,
I think
those Scorpions, weren't those like 32 ACP or 380?
Oh, really?
Those Scorpion machine pistols? Yeah, I think they were something like that.
It's funny. I remember the MAC-10 was a big scare gun in like the 1980s because I think they claimed that Miami drug gangs, were getting their hands on them and things like that. And that was the scary gun of the early 80s. In fact, some of the things credit the MAC-10 for the leading to the assault weapon ban and some of that. And the thing is, it really was not, a very popular gun. I think the guy who developed them, Ingram, he just it was developed at just the wrong time. The idea was to sell them to the military. They used some apparently for special forces. I didn't even know this till I was doing some research after seeing it in the film that I didn't realize. But he started selling them in the early 70s, and of course that was towards when Vietnam was beginning to wind down, and the military, I'm sure, was cutting back on purchasing new equipment, and the company went under, and a couple of other companies bought out the rights to build them, and they tried for off and on. And then you talking about that suppressor, that was a big selling point with foreign governments. And when there was a ban on exporting suppressors is when the MAC-10 finally saw the end of its production lifetime. So.
Well, I'm looking at the profile for the MAC-10, and according to IMFDB, the first film the MAC-10 was ever in was in 1974, and it was John Wayne's, one of his last films, maybe his last, McHugh. That was one of the films that came to mind when I saw the MAC-10, was John Wayne's McHugh. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I didn't realize on IMFDB that they had weapon profiles, and then you can see all the movies that gun's in. That's pretty cool. It's
a pretty neat resource. I guess you'd call it a crowdsource type thing where people contribute, like a wiki. Mm-hmm.
Yep, like Wikipedia. It's an online wiki. Do we want to talk about more guns, or where are we going?
Sure. We were talking about the revolver that's in it, and one of the things that's kind of interesting is that if you remember the movie Halloween and Donald Pleasance in it, he carried around a revolver, and it was the Model 15 Combat Masterpiece, the Smith & Wesson, which the gun in this film is a stainless steel version of that. So it's kind of interesting that John Carpenter, apparently somebody on his crew, liked Smith & Wesson revolvers and felt like having them in. But, Adrienne Barbeau, when she shoots the revolver, did you hear how quick those shots came?
Yeah,
at the one point.
Yeah, that whole part was like sped up. That's towards the end of the film, but she shoots like 3 guys in a row, and it was
I mean, she triple tapped so fast that you couldn't do it with a revolver.
Yeah, and then there's a part at the end where she shoots more than 6 rounds out of it without reloading.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the blanks they're using weren't real impressive. They had kind of a little sparkle to them when they came out. It was kind of funny. They have to do a trade-off when they're doing stuff like that, and how much do you trust the actors with a gun with blanks in it?
Yeah. Boy, looking at the profile for the Model 67, really hasn't been in that many movies. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's surprising.
But and like I said, and then you think that its brother gun was in another John Carpenter movie, and it had only been in a few more films than the 67, but not too many more. So somebody really likes Smith & Wesson revolvers. The armorer in this, he actually had a gun rental store and stuff in California. So I'd like to, hopefully on the show we can do an interview with an armorer for some of the films.
Yeah, that would.
I think it'd be interesting.
That'd be awesome. Mm-hmm. That'd be very cool. So going back to, kind of the plot of the film, Kurt Russell is, or Snake. By the way, he has the worst snake tattoo on his abdomen ever. But yeah, he's looking for the president, and he runs into some other characters. I guess one of the first gunplay parts is where there's like the crazy prisoners live in the sewer, and they come out and kind of corner him, and so he unloads the MAC-10 on a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he pretty much went through his whole 32 round magazine with that one.
Oh yeah, and every time he met someone, they were like, "I thought you were dead." And it kept making me think of another John Wayne movie. I think it's Big Jake, where every time someone met John Wayne in that movie, they were like, "I thought you were dead," and he's like, "Not hardly." And so I was waiting for Kurt Russell to say that at some point in this movie.
Yeah, no, the action scenes, there really was not as much gunplay as there could have been in the film. You also get some crossbows, and I liked Ernest Borgnine with the Molotov cocktail.
Yeah. So Ernest Borgnine was a cab driver. Curiously enough, somehow they have they were actually pumping oil out of the ground and making their own gasoline.
Yeah, that'll work.
And he was a cab driver, and he said something about being a cab driver in that same cab for like the last 30 years. And I'm like, okay, how does that work? You're a cab driver before they made Manhattan into a prison, and they left you here with your cab, or you became a criminal at the same time? I don't.
Yeah, you can't look at it too closely. You can't analyze the script too closely.
But yeah, he at some point he picks up Kurt Russell because he's being chased, and I think it's when he's being chased by, is it by the crazy people or by the gang that runs the city?
The crazy people.
So yeah, Ernest Borgnine throws a Molotov cocktail at the crazy people, and they take off. And then I guess one of the big parts of the film or plot points is, or I don't know what you would call it, but is that Ernest Borgnine has a cassette player in his car, and he's listening to music and stuff. And that kind of struck me as funny that, this is 1981. What year were cassettes introduced and really popular enough?
They were big in 81. They were big in 81.
And cars, though, were they in most cars? I guess they might have been.
Yeah. You had 8-track tapes up to about 1977, 78, and then it was by 78. People were putting cassette players in cars, aftermarket.
Okay.
And then by 80, but now his cab was
like a 50s, right?
Exactly, or 60s. I'm sure we can get some car people who could tell us exactly what the make and model and year is. But so it must have been an aftermarket cassette player
that he got in prison. But it reminds me of, I used to work for a farmer in high school, and I had an old John Deere I drove that had a 8-track player, factory installed. And I had a 8-track to cassette tape converter. It was like this big monolith that you plugged in, and you could play cassette tape in the 8-track. But then I had a cassette to CD player adapter. So I had like three.
I had one of those. 3
adapters, daisy chained.
Oh, geez. You got me off on your tractor story.
Sorry.
No.
Well, maybe. So basically, he gets chased by the great crazy people. He meets up with Ernest Borgnine, and then he meets up with the brain, what they call the brain, and that's the guy that pumps the oil out of the ground and converts
it.
Who's
Henry Dean Stanton, who was in Alien.
Oh, okay.
The original Alien.
That's where okay, yeah. I thought I recognized him.
Yeah, he played one of the 2 mechanics.
Okay. So yeah, they hook up, and supposedly there's this guy called the Duke that runs the whole city, and Kurt Russell's trying to find the Duke because the Duke's holding the president. Yeah, they're running around, and lost where I was going with that. But that kind of catches you up on the plot point. So at some point, they do see the Duke, and I do have to say he has the most kicking car ever, because he's got, some people have spoilers on their cars or rims, but no, the Duke rolls in style. His car has chandeliers hanging off the, I guess, chandelier holders. So he's got, I don't know. He's got chandeliers hanging on his hood. I thought that was just epic.
Do you think they're aftermarket?
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
They're standard equipment.
It's funny. They even put the sound effects in the film for the chandeliers clanking around when they're driving down the street. It's pretty hilarious. Which
I think helps the movie to last, in the fact that it's very clear that John Carpenter and Kurt Russell and them were enjoying the absurdity of some of the things that they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't you get the feel that they were not taking themselves too seriously?
Right. Yeah, I think you had, well, or at least that's what it looks like looking back 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, they may say the complete opposite if you ask them, but
they were, and you definitely got the feel they were modeling themselves off of Mad Max and Thunderdome. And was Thunderdome before or after?
Thunderdome was the third film in that series.
What was the second?
Road Warrior and Mad Max were 1 and 2.
Road Warrior, right.
So, or maybe Mad Max was first. I don't know. I always get the first two mixed up on those.
Mad Max was first. Max was first.
So anyways, yeah, they basically track down the Duke and get captured, of course, leading up to, the climax or whatever. But there's another funny scene with the MAC-10 where the Duke now has Kurt Russell's MAC-10, and he's target shooting at the president, who's chained to the wall. And he's like shooting around the president, making an outline, and he's like got like his foot up in the air, holding the MAC-10 up with like his foot for stability, like sitting in like a bench. And yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, the Internet Firearms database makes a point of saying that the suppressor was not working at that point, apparently.
Oh, yeah, that was the other funny part, that it was not suppressed. Yeah. But yeah, I keep taking the steering wheel from you, Allie. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, that's okay. No, I'm glad you enjoyed the film. I wondered if you had seen it before or not.
Yeah, and I'd seen it pop up before, this one and the sequel, and I'm glad I did. It's definitely, I gotta agree, it is a cult classic, and I think you gotta check it out if you haven't seen it.
So it's just it's a lot of fun to watch the absurdities in the film, and it's nice that the MAC-10 got a starring role in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they do the shooting guns inside of cars thing too, which I have never actually fired a gun off inside of a car, but it can't be good.
No, I was thinking that there was an episode of The Walking Dead where he was shooting his python off in a closed car, and I'm like, no, thank you.
Okay, that character is going to be deaf for the rest of the show. Yeah.
Well, and that, like, wasn't The Walking Dead in the pilot episode of that where he shoots his python off inside a tank? And
At least he showed some effects from that.
Right, for a minute or two. Instead of like the next season where he can't hear anything. That would
a little blood coming out the nose, and yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, that would probably knock you out, I would think. A concussion like that going off inside a metal box.
You would think. You really would think.
Yeah, I'm looking at our time here. We should probably get towards a wrap-up. So get to the climax, and why don't you take it from there?
Okay. Well, pretty much, Kurt Russell, of course, succeeds. And Dave, the the end of it, there's a little ironic twist at the end. I don't think we have to spoil it that much. It doesn't have anything to do with the gun. Oh, one other thing, the throwing the knife at the forehead. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah, but remind me of that scene.
He throws actually, was it him or Adrian Barbeau? Now I've forgotten. But one of them throws a knife at one of the villains, and it hits the forehead and goes in and kills him. Now, I'm not sure how hard you have to throw a knife to penetrate somebody's you wonder if the script called for it to go into his eye or something like that, and they decided that'd get them an R rating, and they wanted to avoid that.
Maybe. Yeah, but that's something I think about in zombie movies, too, when they're stabbing people in the skull. Like, that's like one of the, if not the hardest bone on your body, your skull. And I can't imagine that, maybe, throwing, maybe you got more velocity, but, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
In defensive shooting, they tell you to aim for the triangle and not for the skull.
Right, because if you look at defensive shooting cases, there's a lot where bullets or like any kind of shooting, headshots, there's a lot of times when those are deflected off the head because of that, because it's such a hard, not just hard surface, but it's also round, so.
But when I saw that, I said, hey, they probably did, if it was done today, you would have seen it go right, they would have done a zoom in and close up of it going into his eye with the love for graphic scenes these days.
Right. Yeah, there wasn't too much blood or gore in this one.
No.
Not too terribly bad. So the president ends up picking up a M16 at the end too.
To dispatch the Duke who humiliated him earlier, making him pay tribute to him.
That's right.
So
that's right. Yeah.
Donald Pleasance gets his moment up on the parapet, machine gunning down the Duke.
Yeah, at one point they were escaping across a bridge, because apparently they left all the bridges intact, but they just put mines on them. And they're escaping across, and they blew the taxi cab in half, like literally, like cut in half. That was another classic scene as well. Yeah, and only one of them died.
Without airbags.
Right.
Without airbags.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other gun stuff in it. Oh, the other thing that struck me as a little bit maybe sad or just different was that the Twin Towers were prominently featured.
I thought about that too. I think it's hard to see a film that really and this film definitely highlighted him. It was part of the plot that he was going to escape off of, on a glider off of the Twin Towers. And you see, these days, even if they were making a film about this, a period prior to their destruction, they would not highlight the fact that make them a part of the film. I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably too bad in some ways.
And when you see them in a film like this, you realize what a prominent part of the
skyline.
Skyline.
Right. It really strikes a chord. But so yeah, there were some flintlock guns. I guess we didn't mention that were in
in Lee Van Cleef's office. He's the head of security.
Right.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Normally you would have thought that if they were going to do something like that, kind of highlight his military, that they would have used, 1860s kind of American military weapons and stuff. Maybe even, the present day dress sword for the military or something like that. But I thought it was kind of odd. They picked like 15th century flintlocks and swords, and it must have been what was available. Most of the film was actually shot in Missouri. That wasn't shot on a soundstage in L.A. or I think there was only one shot that was actually done and then used in the film, and it was an establishing shot with some people in the foreground.
Very cool. Yeah,
it's too expensive to shoot in New York, I think, for them. I said $6 million was not a huge budget, especially since, as corny as some of the special effects appeared, they were probably pretty expensive at the time.
I think that covers all my show notes, all my snarky comments, except for Lee Van Cleef was wearing earrings, which I found very bizarre.
Yeah.
But it was the 80s, I guess.
And there again, I think they were trying to project into the future.
Right. I guess we should say Lee Van. For those of you that don't know that name, Lee Van Cleef was one of the guys in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Right.
So that will probably. And he wasn't the Ugly, and he wasn't Clint Eastwood.
He was a standard character actor, often a villain in Western films. So overall, you really enjoyed the film. That's kind of what I'm taking away from it.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. More so than many of the other recent movies that I've watched on Netflix or Amazon. So, yeah, it was a good time for sure.
Kurt Russell has actually said it was his favorite film role.
Huh.
It's a cult classic. There isn't great acting in it. The special effects aren't anything to write home about. But it's one of those movies that they were half making, it appears, looking back, that they were half making fun of themselves and having a good time at it and willing to go over the top with chandeliers on Cadillacs.
Yeah, I'm going to have to buy an old Cadillac now.
I'm thinking you're going to break a lot of crystals.
Yeah. That's in the budget, I guess. That's a tax deduction, right?
There you go. But and I'd love when we're doing these podcasts, if anybody has experiences with the guns that are in the films and wants to email us, I think that'd be cool. Particularly,
right.
The MAC-10 was used by some special forces during the 70s and 80s.
Well, didn't the White House's Secret Service use it for a period of time?
I think you may be right. Now that you mentioned it, I have not seen that recently, but now that you say it, I think I have heard that. Oh yeah. Actually, I know why you're saying that. When Ronald Reagan was assassinated or shot, you see one of his Secret Service men pull one out. Now that you mention it.
Okay, cool, very cool. Well, I guess we should. I'll let you talk a little bit about some of the movies on the horizon.
Sure. There's a couple of films coming out this summer that I'm really excited about. Godzilla. Have you seen the trailer for that?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of an epic Halo jump. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston's in it from Breaking Bad. He has a pretty prominent role, and I like Bryan Cranston a lot. You watch Breaking Bad?
Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? Don't spoil it for me because I haven't seen the last season.
I haven't either.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah, actually, I have. Okay, I won't spoil it.
Yeah, I haven't seen the finale of Breaking Bad, but yeah, that's a great show, and that would be a good one too. There's a lot of guns in it too over the course of the series, and yeah, Bryan Cranston is amazing. He's I mean Breaking Bad. Those awards he won were well deserved for sure.
I think the other film I'm looking forward to is on July 18th, The Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Is coming out, and I'm a fan of the original Planet of the Apes films. Do you like them?
The Charlton Heston ones?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I watched those when I was fairly young, and they were. I really enjoyed them. I mean, I think when I was a kid, the thing that creeped me out the most was a lady that was in the sleep chamber on the shuttle that aged like.
Oh yeah,
it cracked and she aged to a mummy or something, and,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there again, they do some of that, trying to make the guns that the apes use futuristic looking, or look like something different than present day, and that's always kind of interesting when people try to do stuff like that, because you end up with things like M16s without forearms. But
right. So are you going to focus on a fair amount of in the theater type movies as well?
No. Those are just some things that are coming up. I think for our films, mostly stuff that's at least a year or two old. I don't see, give people a chance to see them, and a lot of older films. Hopefully,
yeah, I mean,
people are fans of those old films,
right? Absolutely.
And we can, and if we have people who haven't seen them, maybe us talking about the guns in them and the films themselves will get people interested in going back and looking at some of them, because there's a lot of really good movies out there that.
Yeah, why don't you list off maybe like the next 5 or 6 that you'd like to do, and that way we can have anyone interested in co-hosting with you those episodes email in.
Sure. We've talked. Of course, we're hopefully going to do the Wild Bunch. We're talking about doing a Walking Dead. Talking about the guns of the Walking Dead. They've got a huge fan base, and of course they are still on. But I think there's plenty of room to talk about the first couple of seasons of it. There's lots of military. There's movies like we've talked about Saving Private Ryan, a great film that does a lot of really detail. You can tell that Steven Spielberg and his crew put a lot of thought into the weapons that are used and the way they're used. So that's a definite. We talked about doing that possibly for a Memorial Day episode, because particularly those films that are serious, that deal with actual historical events, I think you have to pay respect to the actual people who went over there and paid a price for our country's future. And what else have we talked about doing? There were.
I told you have to do Die Hard for Christmas.
You're right. Both Die Hards.
The first two?
The first and the second, the second in particular has. I think the second, well, I don't know, they both have a lot of gunplay in them.
Right. Well, and we should say, if you have any suggestions, Allie, I'm sure you're probably open to suggestions, like if there's like 1 or 2 movies that you feel like you'd love to co-host, on the Guns of Hollywood podcast. Probably.
And we'll try to bounce around, not do, too many Westerns in a row, or too many, just action, or too many military, World War II. There was a World War I film, The Iron Cross. It's really an excellent film that a lot of people haven't seen.
Okay.
But
yeah, I haven't seen
Kelly's Heroes. There's just, and it's kind of nice that we can mix in some comedies and things like that too.
Yeah.
So Kelly's Heroes is a comedy that's World War II oriented.
Yeah,
lots of cool
one.
guns. Mm-hmm.
What about some other cult classics? Like, have you ever seen The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai?
Oh, yeah,
with Peter,
a long time ago.
Peter Weller, John Lithgow. Who else is in that? Jeff Goldblum, Christopher Lloyd. There's a lot of big names in it, and it's probably the quirkiest, one of the quirkiest movies you've ever seen. Because Buckaroo Banzai is an adventurer, surgeon, and rock musician. But there are guns in it, so
there you go. And that's the great thing about doing it, is that we can find guns and a lot of films that we just want to talk about.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And a really good cult, good. Some people might differ with, but one that has a lot of guns in it is Tremors.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and it's a good film. I mean,
yeah, I really love it. But yeah,
And you want that. They even show reloading equipment.
Right. I mean, out of all the movies with guns in it, it's probably got one of the best gun rooms in it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you get to see a typical American housewife using guns.
Yeah, well, who is
okay,
that?
maybe not too typical, but
that's country music star. What's her name?
Country music star. Man,
she has a TV show too. Gosh, redhead.
Yeah,
frantically typing in.
Yeah, exactly. You got that right. That's the beauty of the internet.
That's funny. But anyways, yeah,
does Reba McEntire?
There you go,
like
Reba McEntire. That would be it. Have people screaming at the podcast right now. But yeah, email me, Jake at firearmsradio.tv, or leave a comment on the bottom of this episode, and we'll get you in touch with Allie. Eventually we'll have a Hollywood Guns, or I'm saying it backwards, gunsofhollywood.com will be the site for this podcast eventually after we get a few episodes out. So you'll be able to see the calendar there of upcoming movies. Have a movie watching party with the Firearms Radio Network. So, yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. This is something I've been wanting to host on the network for a long time, and so glad you brought it to my attention, Allie. Thank you.
And we were talking about trying to do some other media too, and putting it up on the website if we can. Get some videos of
some of the guns that
pictures, exactly.
Yeah, that were in the films, and some bonus content. Awesome.
So we got fans that have the guns. If they can take pictures and send them in, that'd be cool too.
Very cool. So yeah, does that about wrap it up? Is there anything else I'm missing?
I think I've said all I can say.
So again, email me, Jake at firearmsradio.tv. If you're interested in being part of the Guns of Hollywood podcast, only on the Firearms Radio Network. And I'd like to thank our sponsor, LA Police Gear, LAPoliceGear.com. And, I like a lot of things about LA Police Gear. One of the things I like is that they carry Oakley. That's right, they carry Oakley, not just glasses, but did you know Oakley makes combat boots, T-shirts, hats, bags? They make some really kicking backpacks as well. So, and they're not just tactical; they're practical, sporting backpacks that are built to fit, most laptops, separate case for laptops and stuff. But LA Police Gear. They not only carry all your favorite tactical gear, they also carry Oakley, which Oakley also makes great shooting glasses. I know Hank here at the Firearms Radio Network, his main tinted, I think it's his tinted pair of glasses are Oakley's. Maybe it's his clear pair, but one of them are prescription Oakleys. So if you're looking for good prescription shooting glasses, you can check out Oakley as well. So special link in the show notes for going to LA Police Gear, and you also free shipping, all orders over $89. So very cool. Check it out. And Duluth Trading Company also makes a program possible, and they have a pretty awesome hat for this summer. If you're doing a lot of work outside, maybe even at the range, they have something called the Men's Crusher hat. And the Men's Crusher hat is kind of a classic design brimmed hat that you can crush it. They call it the Crusher because you can smush it all the way into like the size of your palm and put it in a pocket or stow it away and always have it with you, and then it springs back to its original form. So I got one of these for mowing the yard. I mow it's probably 2-3 acres. My grandfather's yard I mow, so I'm out there for several hours every week So I picked this hat up to keep the sun off my face and off my neck, and it's completely mesh pretty much, except for the brim and the top. So the sides are mesh. They call it the Cool Max setup, I guess, and it also has Cool Max sweatband that pulls sweat away from your head. So all around, it's a great hat for sure. So, Allie, do you have any experience with Duluth or LA police gear?
No, I really don't. I've heard you talk about it. I've been looking at some of the Duluth pants and thinking, doing USPSA or 3-gun where they got you getting down on the ground and stuff.
Yeah, you should check out the fire hose work jeans for that.
Those were the ones I was looking at.
Yeah,
exactly.
Those are perfect because they clean up, throw them in the washer and they look brand new, and they also have really good pockets. If you get any of the ones with the side pockets, because there's multiple pouches and they're somewhat modular too, so might be good for putting those extra magazines that you might need, or you can put in. It's good.
They've got pockets for knee protection too, don't they?
Yeah. There's, I forget which pair, but they have, because they also make knee protectors. And, the ultimate fire hose. So you can, I think those are them. But you're right. Some of them do, and you can snap those in so they're not sliding around. Mm-hmm. That's my biggest issue with knee protectors is that I've done some work in like the attic here in the studio, and the stupid things slide off my knees, the kind you Velcro around your knees. But like it wouldn't happen with these. So I'll have to think about getting a pair of those for the next time I'm doing a lot of work down on my knees, because I laid like 1,500 square feet of insulation by hand one time, and that was trying to get my knee pads to balance on the rafters and stay on my knees was a challenge. So. Yeah, that's a good point. So, check out Duluth Trading Company's special link, gunguyradio.com/Duluth, or just go to our website, gunguyradio.com. I always link to these products I talk about, and there's also banners, usually on the right-hand column if you want to click through. So, big thank you to the sponsors that make Gun Guy Radio possible. Welcome back to the Brownells Product Spotlight on Gun Guy Radio, and we have the category product manager, Paul Levy from Brownells, once again on the program. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Jake. Category manager. It's okay. Either way.
Very cool. So we're talking AR-15s again, and this might be something that a lot of people might not be familiar with. They're familiar with AR-15s have the recoil buffer system, but this is something a little bit different. What do you have this week?
Yeah, this type of product's been on the market really on and off, actually. It's a hydraulic buffer for your AR-15, M16, 308 AR. There was a company producing these, and they were fairly common up until about a year and a half ago, and they pulled them from the market. So there was kind of a gap there. So really there's just two companies making these again now. Crossfire is one, and then what I have here is the Kintec. They came out with the whole line, which covers basically any AR or 308 AR. So if you have a carbine buffer, you can replace it with this. If you have a rifle-length buffer tube and buffer, you can replace it with this. If you have 308, you can replace it with the 308 buffer, the appropriate one, with the appropriate hydraulics and weight. And then also, there's an even shorter one, which I don't have here. So if you have a 308 with a AR-15 buffer tube, you can use the shortened buffer. So really, they got the whole family of buffer tubes covered, which was a real gap in our offering for a while once the other company left the market. Really nice construction on these. It's all stainless steel. If you can see that there. It does still have the rubber pad at the end like a standard buffer would. But really impressive construction on these. I don't know if you can hear that operating, but it's not like it's leaking fluid. It's not just kind of an awkward depression. And really pretty reliable. How it functions is the buffer spring, of course, goes over it like normal. Once the buffer reaches the rear of the tube, this will depress under pressure from the bulk carrier group, and that just softens the recoil towards the rear there and then returns everything forward. So on that rear where you normally just have the buffer just slamming into the rear of the tube, this kind of softens that, cushions it. So you get basically the recoil is a little bit less of a shove or a push, and it's just spread out over more time. So you get reduced recoil. This can improve reliability in some guns that are running poorly. And generally, a lot of people just prefer these just for just the way it feels under recoil, and when you're actually working the action, it does feel slightly different.
Very cool. So your existing recoil spring slides over that.
Correct. So if you're using a 308 or you're using an AR-15, keep your recoil spring and just use that existing spring with it. And do make sure you buy it for your correct buffer tube, carbine, rifle length. And then for the 308, make sure you buy the shorty if you have a standard carbine length AR-15 tube. Because some 308s do have a longer carbine tube. So make sure you know which one you're looking at there before you buy. Right here's the rifle length. Really the same length overall as the original buffer, just has the added hydraulic. And then when you feel these, there is a difference between the 308. Here's the 308 tube. You'll notice it's a little bit shorter to account for that longer carrier. But there is a different weight and notice even a different distance that the hydraulic travels. So they really put a lot of thought into these, did a lot of testing to get a product that works and works well.
Yeah, these have fascinated me for a while now. I haven't had a hands-on experience yet. We have one on the way to the AR-15 podcast for those guys to check out. But, yeah, very, very innovative product. Like you said, they're finely machined and made. They're impressive looking as well.
Yeah, they're pretty neat, and we're glad to see these come back out, because the previous company, people really liked them, and they sought these out because people look for that different option, and a lot of people just don't like the stock one. They run into reliability issues with just that lightweight carbine buffer or rifle buffer, and this does help quite a bit.
Well, very cool. So I'll have links to this in the show notes for this episode of Gun Guy Radio, or below the video on YouTube, so you can get a direct link and check that out right away. So, well, very cool, Paul. I'll have to put this on my to-do list to try one of these out firsthand. They seem like something that can take my rifle maybe to the next level.
Yeah, possibly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Paul. Can't wait to see what you have next week. We'll see you then.
All right. See you then.
Well, and that brings us to the Brownells giveaway. So I will be emailing the winner soon who won the Brownells M16 bolt carrier groups, giving away 4 of those. And that will give you the perfect excuse to start your AR-15 build. Do you have an AR-15 yet, Allie?
I do. I'm in parts of others. So I've got, I shouldn't say this. AR-15, they're fun to shoot, but I've got an AK. It's more fun.
Oh no.
That tells you the kind of guy I'm a wood and steel kind of guy. I shoot single stack and USPSA.
I guess I have to
admit. Does
admit,
that classify me?
I guess I have to admit AKs are fun to shoot too. Don't tell the AR-15 podcast I said that.
But I enjoy listening to the AR-15 podcast because even though I'm not an AR-15 kind of guy, they give me enough information that when I'm with the AR-15 guys, I can at least chip in the conversation once in a while from stuff I've heard on the podcast.
Right. Very cool. So, yeah, you can subscribe to the Brownells giveaway by subscribing to our email newsletter at gunguyradio.com. And something I'm announcing right now is that I'm making that email newsletter the Firearms Radio Network email newsletter. So going to be expanding that to kind of expand across the whole network, cover everything. Probably something I should have done when I launched the network. But subscribe and it'll be entered for life for giveaways that we do through the subscription of the newsletter. Really easy to find that, gunguyradio.com/winner, or there's also a form in the sidebar. Ryan Cross also makes this episode possible. He's the graphics designer for the Firearms Radio Network. He's also the host of the Gun and Gear Review podcast, but he makes some awesome artwork. And if you need artwork or website design, check out Ryan Cross, hunterofdesign.com. Well, that about wraps up this episode. So, again, Allie, thank you so much for coming on. Really, it was an awesome time.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you can share your thoughts by leaving a comment on the bottom of this episode in the show notes, gunguyradio.com/118. And if you have any suggestions for movies for Allie, or if you want to do a co-host gig for just an episode or two, if you want to give it maybe a permanent co-hosting gig, a trial run, just shoot me an email or leave a comment on the bottom of this episode. And remember to subscribe via iTunes so you never miss a show. GunGuyRadio.com/iTunes, and we value those iTunes reviews. Helps other people find the show. And remember, join the NRA and the Second Amendment Foundation. I'm a member of both, and they do things we can't do as individuals to fight for our rights. And don't forget to shop Brownells using our affiliate link, and also Amazon using our affiliate link. Just click any of the banners on the website before you shop, and a small percentage will go to supporting Gun Guy Radio. And don't forget to check out all the other awesome shows on the Firearms Radio Network. Subscribe to them all via the master feed, firearmsradio.tv/iTunes. Well, that's a wrap, and we'll see you next week.
Want to build an AR-15? Have an AR-15 addiction? Want to know what all the buzz is about? Tune into the weekly AR-15 podcast only on the Firearms Radio Network. AR-15podcast.com. This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv.